Hey there, and welcome back to the video series about the RESTful API. So we created the code for the register route, so we are able to create a new user and register it in the database, including name and also the email and password. And next up is the route for logging in this user and using it in the API. And I've just written down a couple of comments that explains the tasks we need to go through in this, and it looks a lot like the one in the register, so we can probably use some code from that. But the first thing is that we need to validate the information, and we also have this validation code for when you registered a new user. And again, this is also kind of the same. Let's get rid of that there. And so we have the validation JS file here, and we can see we have register validation, and we should make a similar piece of code for the login validation. So I'm just going to copy this code here, and we can see that it should not be called register again. We should call this login validation. We get some data with it. And the only thing we need to change basically is we need to take away the name, because when we log in a user, we are interested in the, I need to have a comment there. We are interested in the email, if that is valid, and also the password, if that is valid, regarding these rules here. So now we have the login validation that checks for the email and the password. And the name is not so important, because if we have a user in the database, it will have been validated when we created the user. So we just need to also specify that we want to export this login validation. So now we are exporting both the register and the login validation. Right, so let's go back here to our login route here. So the next thing is that we should use it right here, and we can see that in the previous piece of code we checked if the input was valid, so we can also use that again. If we take this and copy it down there, so now we are having the same code here. We just need to modify it with login validation. We still get the request, and we still provide the body, and the body will have the email and the password that we want to log in with. So we will perform the check if the information is valid according to our requirements: minimum length 6 and maximum 255. Okay, so the next thing, if this login is valid, we should find the user. Okay, we can see we actually have code right here that does that thing. And before we do this, we should also output an error. So I'm just gonna take this code first here, because if the validation is not correct, if we have an error, then we will output an error message from Joy that checked the login information, that the information is not valid. So that is the same as we did above. Okay, so now the user knows that there was an error with the login information specified. Okay, so that brings us to if it is valid, and we know it is valid because it passed the if statement, then we need to find the user. We can use this line of code here because we are finding a user based on the email, and we also get the email when we log in. So we basically use the same piece of code here. We just say I want to find the user, so I'm making a constant variable that is the user, and based on the email that we get from the request body here. Okay, so if the email is wrong for some reason, we should also display an error. And let's see here, we also have actually a structure for that we can use. So we just need to modify this a little bit here, because we find the user in this line here, 57. And if we write, if we don't have a user, we should respond with 400, and then another message here, probably that email is wrong. Oh. So we are responding to the user that the email is wrong, or the user does not exist in the database, whatever message we could put in here. Okay, so now that we've outputted this, If we pass this sentence here, then we know that the user exists. Now we need to check for if the passwords match the one that we specified. And the way we do this is that we will make a new constant here, valid password, make an await here, and we will use our bcrypt and use the function called compare, and then we will compare the request body that we have provided, so the one that we provide in the login, with the one connected to the user that we fetched from the database. So we have a user here and the user has a password. So we're comparing these two passwords if they match. And if they don't match, we will throw an error. And the way we can do this, we can actually do this here. If we don't have a valid password, then we will respond with a status 400 and that the password is wrong. Okay. So that is a lot of code written right here, and we're almost done. The last two things is that we need to create this authentication token with the username and ID, and then we need to attach it, this token, to our header. And for that we also need to include a new library that is called JSON Web Token, because we're going to use that to authenticate, so that we can pass this token around to all the different routes. But I think we're going to do this in the next video. So this is where we're going to create this authentication token and attach it to the header. But right here we have made all the groundwork to actually check the user, if they exist, if it is valid information, and if the password is right. So at this point we are ready to create this token and pass it along to the header. Okay, so I hope you make this work and have fun with this. Bye bye.